morality, free will, right and wrong are mindsets and properties of a human being. Because what would life be without having that possibility of choice? I mean, we apply choice every day of our lives, from picking which outfit to wear to work, to what kind of coffee you're going to order. But what if your choices matter not only to you, but to someone you care about? And what if your choices not only affect someone you care about, but the whole world? A world that is doomed. A world where the only thing left to lose is love. To that, I begin this explanation about one of my favorite pieces of entertainment ever created, The Last of Us. From its brilliant story and characters to its themes and overall impact in the gaming industry, this game is by far more than a survival zombie game, and one that for sure left a mark in gaming and what we truly can call an experience. From the get-go, you know that this isn't only Joel's story, that even though you mostly play as Joel, he is just one of the many that got affected by the horrific effects of a virus called the cordyceps, which basically creates this zombie-like creature. Even though at first it looks as a cliche zombie apocalypse scenario, as the first chapter goes by, The Last of Us lets you know that this is not a zombie game, that is more than that. That is about losing people you love. From the first gunshot in the chapter to the last.
Please don't.
This scene is just devastating. I still remember how I felt about it. I was young. I thought I was going to kill some zombies and that's it. It just hurt to see a little girl you play as for such a short time, but understood and emphasized with just die.
Baby, please. I know, baby. I know. Sarah. Baby.
20 years later, Joel wakes up, but it's a different Joel, a one that has suffered so much. You can see the years and experiences on his face. You instantly understand Joel. He is an old man that acts tough, but has a sensitive side that is buried deep down his soul. We all know what happens next. Joel and Tess find Marlene, the leader of the Fireflies. She guides them to Ellie. Hours later, they find out the purpose of why Ellie was given to them. Because she is immune to the infected.
Look at this!
I don't care how you got infected.
It's 3 weeks old.
No, everyone turns within 2 days, so you stop.
Then Tess dies and Joel and Ellie start their journey of change. But that's just the surface. Since I already talked about Joel, let's talk about the actual main character, Ellie. At first, she seems to be a little girl that Joel has to sneak through so he can get back some guns. We also learn that she has been alive since the beginning of the apocalypse. That's why when she is given to Joel and Tess, she's thrilled about learning and discovering the outside world. Now, why do I say that she is the main character of this whole story? The reason for this is because even though we play as Joel, we are discovering the world as Ellie does. In the DLC Left Behind, it shows that this innocence and curiousness that Ellie shows towards life comes from her friend Riley, the first real connection that she had with a human being getting killed by this twisted world, which is also the deepest connection she has with Joel. As the journey goes by, Ellie becomes more connected with Joel. They somehow understand each other without knowing both disasters past. The fact that Ellie is the cure of humanity but still acts like a normal teenager, eager to discover the world, just tells how compelling her character really is. Amor fati, as defined by the German philosopher Friedrich Diathnitia is a love of someone's fate, an attitude in which one sees everything that happens in one's life, including suffering and loss, as good. Now let's come back to Joel, an intricate character that died with his daughter. When we see him 20 years later, he is no longer a caring father. Instead, he's a grumpy and selfish smuggler. Tess seems to be the only one that cares about him, and she seems to be the only one Joel has a relationship with. The character of Joel constantly evades loss. When Tess dies, he does not show any emotions towards her death. He tells Ellie to don't speak about it. Another example is Tommy, his brother. How in a world where the only thing left to lose is each other, they seem to be more distant than ever. And then with Ellie, how when she's given to Joel, he only wants to get rid of her and even give her to his brother. Joel lives in a constant state of negation towards people because he doesn't want to feel what he felt when he lost Sarah.
I'm not her, you know.
What?
Maria told me about Sarah.
Ellie?
And
You are treading on some mighty thin ice here.
I'm sorry about your daughter, Joel, but I have lost people too.
You have no idea what loss is.
Everything in Joel and Ellie's journey has led to this midpoint of Joel's character. He has finally found what he was searching for, a daughter. When Ellie confronts Joel, she opens his eyes into the fact that she has suffered too. Joel tells her that he is not her father.
You're right. You're not my daughter. And I sure as hell ain't your dad.
But as the idea sinks in, he accepts the fact that he does care about her, so he decides to stay with her. This is why this is not a journey to redemption, but to acceptance. Determinism is a philosophical idea that everything that happens is a result of certain conditions, and given those conditions, nothing else could happen. It is usually understood to preclude free will because it entails that humans cannot act otherwise than they do. This idea is explored during the realization of Joel towards Ellie, how he finally fights and cares for someone, even torture and commit cold-blooded murder.
No, wait!
Determinism is also showed with David, how he constantly repeats the idea of doing whatever to survive. He also repeats the idea of destiny, saying everything happens for a reason. So, if determinism is in fact part of the story as it was implied, then given the conditions that Ellie and Joel faced, what happened was in fact their destiny. The ending of the game better shows its major themes. There are two sides of the coin. The first is that Joel's act was selfish, and then there is the argument that says that Joel's acts are justified, and that what he did out of love for Ellie. Consequentialism is a concept that states that the consequences of one's acts are the only way to measure the rightness. From a consequentialist standpoint of view, a morally right act is the one that will produce a good outcome regardless of the nature of the act itself. If we analyze Joel and the Fireflies' acts from a consequentialist standpoint of view, then the Fireflies' acts are completely in benefit of the world. Joel's acts also seem morally correct, since the outcome of his actions would save the life of an innocent girl. Even though the fact of lying seems completely selfish, Ellie was going to die. Here's where Amor Friday comes back. I said in the Gamma Sutra blog post about the philosophy of The Last of Us, Joel's decision shows in fact acceptance of the course of nature, of the world they live in. It shows peace of mind and willingness to move forward.
You just come after her.
Throughout the game, we see Joel constantly looking at his watch, a watch that was given to him by his daughter Sarah, the day of Joel's birthday and the day the apocalypse happened, the day Joel lost everything. In the end of the game, when Joel saves Ellie and lies to her, Ellie asks Joel if everything that he said is truth. In this scene, the places have been switched, even though to an extent Joel has accepted Sarah's death by finding someone else to love. Ellie hasn't. Since she escaped David, her philosophy changed. She's no longer accepting the past. That moment when she killed David left a mark in her heart. From now on, she will no longer see Morfratti in the worst of situations. She will now be what Joel was at the beginning of the apocalypse. The impact of this game affected not only millions of players, but the whole video game industry. Since its release, The Last of Us seems to be the aim of every developer. An example is a new God of War. A game, instead of being like its predecessors, it focuses on characters, on the story, and realism.
Get in the boat, boy.
Another example is EA 2018, how almost every game that is a PS4 exclusive seems to be story-based. The Last of Us deserves all the praise they got and are still getting. When this new entry comes in some time in 2019, I am ready to have a new experience, but I am also scared. It seems like Naughty Dog is constantly pushing an SJW agenda. It can be good to an extent, but forcing characters to be gay just for attention is completely wrong. A character should be, well, a character, not a creation just to get internet SJWs to make the movie or game more popular. Most of the times putting the story aside and just basing its pure success on including LGBT characters. The Last of Us Part 2 seems to be doing that, but in a better direction. Since in Left Behind, we see Ellie kissing with Riley. So there is a major possibility that Naughty Dog could be going throughout the right direction by having once again a game that is pure based on its character and story-driven experience.
What are you doing, kiddo? You really gonna go through with this?
I'm gonna find. And I'm gonna kill. Every last one of them.
Finally, what The Last of Us tells us about the world is that we should accept our fate and that we should feel good about the person that we are, always getting better every day. This evidently applies to broken people. This journey of change happens in every single one of the characters, from Bill to Ellie. These characters use choice as a main way on their journey of change, because everything is about choice, right? Since the beginning we see the possibility of letting an infected man live and turn into a clicker, or shoot him so he stops suffering. Whatever you do not have the choice to save him. He will die one way or the other. This is how the game tells us that there is no choice, that you need to accept your fate. In the end, a similar scenario repeats. You enter in the operating room where Ellie is held in, about to get surgery. You come in and there is a doctor and two nurses. The doctor takes a knife and points it at you, expecting you to leave and let it happen. Here is where you do not have a choice. Here you can't leave. You need to kill the doctor. And, well, you do.
Don't!
Fucking animal!
Carrie, shut the hell up!
And then you kill him or leave.
Shit.
The reason that I said Joel accepted his fate to an extent is because he did accept his, but not Ellie's. Leaving her with no choice, Joel forced Ellie to live. Maybe she did know that she was going to die. Here is where The Last of Us leaves us with a final message. A message that says that acceptance is hard. Because how could you let anyone die if the only thing left to lose in a doomed world is
Okay.
each other?